Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Cedric here in Antwerp with a brand new brew review, and I have for you today the Feuillien Saison. Now we have talked about Feuillien before when we talked about the Grand Cru, and you may notice that I have brought out my Feuillien Grand Cru glass here. This has two reasons. First of all, I don't own the Saison glass, which is more like a tulip formed lemonade glass. And secondly, the Grand Cru is part of the signature series by Feuillien, and so is the Saison. Now, if you've ever wondered how a dry hopped Saison or farmhouse ale tastes, well, you could find out with this one, because this is a dry hopped version. I only found that out rather late, but some specs of a Saison are that it is bottled in 75 centiliter bottles, and we will go in depth about this in a later video when I talk only about the concept or the style of Saison. But something else that Saison has to have is a thirst quenching characteristic and a dry taste. It has to be well fermented out, so no leftover sugars, no resting residual sugars, and that calls for, or that makes for a rather bitter beer already, or a rather dry beer already. So dry hopping that is one of the things that I wanted to try out in my career as a brewer, but Feuillien already did this, so why bother? Let's just taste this. Let's see what the bottle tells us. Feuillien Saison is what the Belgians call a beer of the terroir, a bière de terroir, which is basically a local beer. A traditional farmhouse ale with all the rich savor of the fertile land of southern Belgium. Well, classically this is brewed in Hainaut or Henegouwen, which is in the south, the French-speaking part. Thanks to secondary fermentation in the bottle, Saison has an unmistakable flavor full of rich nuances and a slight tang. That is true, but before that re-fermentation in the bottle, they do dry hop this with Styrian Golding hops. So a very classic beer with a very classic hop as well. Ooh, yeah. Now you guys may remember that I love the Saison style. And I also love this brewery because, talking about price over quality, these guys make one hell of a beer, or actually some hell of beers, because they are rather cheap and they are very, very good. Now, first of all, starting with this one, that has a lot of swirl in there. This is very carbonated. I would say that the re-fermentation in the bottle took place. We also see that when we see the bottom of this bottle. Now, I won't be able to show you guys this on camera probably, but you might see a lot of residue on the bottom here and a lot of twirling around. That is of course that re-fermentation yeast, that bottling yeast. So a lot of carbon dioxide, the yeast did its work. Now this is only a 6.5% ABV beer, so this was probably bottled around 6.2%. And they normally, when we add sugar in the bottle, when we add yeast in the bottle, we also add sugar for the yeast to feed on. Of course, that is a minimal amount with this beer style, because we still want that dry taste and not a sweet beer. So we don't want those residual sugars taking the overhand. Lovely, lovely color. I would call this edging on orangey, but I would call this gold blonde. Slightly hazy, but if you see the amount of yeast that is in this bottle, which by the way I am going to cap off, we don't want to waste that lovely, lovely beer. Some nice beige foam, a nice head of foam as well. Very tiny, very dense, tiny bubbles. That's gonna stay on for a while. Now let's see what the nose gives us. A bit of carbon dioxide, but that is no surprise if we see all the twirling in this glass. Yeah, smells rather bitter, slightly malty, but mainly hoppy. Smells bitter, smells dry, smells slightly herbal as well. Now they don't add herbs or spices, but it does smell a bit spicy, probably because of that dryness as well. Beautiful beer. Let's have a taste. Cheers. Yeah, these classic Saison beers keep amazing me for the sheer reason that they are very dry, very bitter, very thirst quenching, but at the same time very refreshing. And that has nothing to do with temperature. And we often perceive sugary drinks like soda pops and stuff as thirst quenching, but that is absolutely wrong. But this is very refreshing, probably because of that hoppiness and because it activates the entirety of our flavor palette. Initial taste is a bit bready, actually, a bit malty, a bit bready. Even a slightly sweet edge around that. But immediately after, we go into the bitter territory. We go into that dryness. We go into that hoppiness, that Styrian Golding, which is a very classic bitter hop as well. Yeah, absolutely lovely. Now, you guys know that I always look for balance in my beers. And bear with me, I would say that this beer isn't actually all that balanced. But for me personally, in a good way, because I like my beers dry and bitter, and this one tips over to that dry and bitter side. Of course, extremely thirst quenching as well. Now, it is no surprise that these beers come off as refreshing and thirst quenching, because initially these were brewed in farms, hence the name farmhouse ale, during winter time, and then fermented over a period of time, a quite long period of time by the way, to be drunk at springtime and even going into summer, after a nice day of working on the land, very hard working, or actually during working on the land. So technically these used to be lower in alcohol, but they were already very well fermented out, no residual sugars. They were very thirst quenching, they were very refreshing, so that you needed less beer, less volume of beer to quench your thirst, and you wouldn't be drunk on the field, of course. And those were often very warm times, very hard working times. So it was key to quench your thirst and to refresh your workers in a efficient and pleasant manner. Now, I can tell you that I visited a German vineyard once when I was about 19 years old, and I went there to pick grapes, and the best part of that day was when the farmer's grandma called all of us to the tractor and took out her kit with some grappa and some wines, and we could have a taste and quench our thirst before working on. So yeah, I can very lively imagine these tafferels. Now we still have a nice centimeter of foam, just like it is intended. still a lot of activity in the glass, a lot of carbon dioxide twirling up, and I am at that moment in time where the aftertaste starts playing up, and again, very lovely. Now in the aftertaste we do get a bit more malty flavors and a slightly sweet flavor, but it is still a bittersweet, meaning mainly bitter and a tiny hint of sweet, which is very, very, very pleasant. So for me personally, if we go over to the scoring, bear in mind I am a Saison fanatic, but for me this is easily a 4.5 out of 5. And I'll tell you a bit more. I talked about price over quality or quality over price. This bottle, this 75 centiliters, basically costs around $5. That's not much. And if you look at this barcode here, you can see that there is a tiny red cross on this. Why? Because my local drinks store sells everything at a 50% discount from the moment that it is about to expire. And by about to expire, I mean in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I bought this way before it was going to expire. And yeah, this is so fermented and this is such a lovely beer. This doesn't expire very quickly. So even after its best before date, it stays well for easily a year and a half. So I bought this at a discount and I paid $2.50 for this 75 centiliter bottle, which is ridiculous. That's basically the price of a beer in a cheap cafe or pub here in Belgium. And that's on the optimistic side. So yeah, that's why this is a 4.5 and not a 4. All this quality, all this flavor for a fraction of the price of other beers. Gotta love it. Okay, that all being said, thank you guys so much for watching again. Thank you for bearing with me and coming back after that absence, that 1 or 2 month absence. Thanks a lot to everyone who commented on the last few videos. I think I got back to all of you. And that is basically why I keep doing this, because of all that positive feedback of you guys. So yeah, thank you so much. If you guys are ever in Belgium, mainly in Antwerp, send me a message. Let's have a beer. I've done that with like at least 3 of you guys. There's room for more. No problem at all. If you guys like this video, give me that thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you want to see anything else. And if you want to see more, subscribe and hit that bell icon and you will get notified whenever I upload something, which should be every Friday and Sunday at 8 p.m. local time. So, that being said, see you guys on Sunday. Cheers, you guys.